Welcome to Central News. I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, Tauranga musician and music teacher Carol Story wants to prove people who think jazz is music for old people wrong. For the first time, the National Jazz Festival will showcase the Bay's aspiring young jazz musicians at the historic village this Easter. Carol has been preparing students for their debut Baby Jazz concert and is excited by the talent that is on offer and the opportunity to create a pathway for young aspiring jazz musicians. The students aged 8 to 14 years old have been rehearsing with seasoned musicians Andrea Meredith, who plays piano, Wayne Melville and Rex Tomich, and will perform classics including God Bless the Child, Summertime and Fly Me to the Moon at the family-friendly event. Carol describes jazz as a conversation that has a beginning and then it goes on and on. A Magic Cross Regional Road Safety Initiative has kicked off with Magic players leaving the netball court and heading to roadsides to promote the Drive Sober message. The 2012 ANZ Championship winning side has thrown its support behind the new 3-year campaign to reduce drink driving crashes across the Magic Zone in Waikato, Bay of Plenty and Gisborne. Kia Magic CEO Tim Hamilton says discussions with Waikato Road Safety Partners first started 2 years ago to see if there was an opportunity to partner on community-based initiatives. Mr Hamilton says they are delighted to have found a cause that really resonates with their local netball community, which spans from Gisborne to the Waikato. Drivers will be offered free food and drink to encourage them to take a break at State Driver Reviver rest stops on some of New Zealand's main routes this Easter weekend. Volunteer state staff will be helping drivers to stay alert by brewing barista coffee, sizzling sausages and handing out fruit, water and safety information. There will also be activities for kids and, of course, toilet facilities. The Waikato rest stop is at VTNZ Testing Station, State Highway 1, 2 kilometres south of Putaruru. A boom in forestry exports led to New Zealand's economy's strongest quarterly growth in 3 years after a fast-finishing 1.5% surge for 2012's final quarter. Figures released by Statistics New Zealand show gross domestic product rose 1.5% to $36.81 billion in the December 2012 quarter from a slow 0.2% September period. Statistics New Zealand National Accounts Manager Rachel Milich says the broad-based nature of growth in the tail end of last year is reflected by record increases in 15 of the 16 industries. Now for our region's weather. Hamilton, your Thursday will be mainly fine with light winds. Your expected high is 25 and an overnight low of 10. Tauranga, your Thursday will be mainly fine with the occasional patch of cloud and sea breezes. Your expected high is 23 and an overnight low of 15. Just ahead, bumping into people around the corner. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. Have you ever found yourself in a hurry running to your destination around a corner and collide with someone else? Not only will it give you a fright, but injuries are often involved too. One Waikato University engineering student has come up with a solution.
Employed by the Child Injury Prevention Foundation to design something, more or less, and investigate strategies to stop kids from crashing into each other when they run around corners.
What was it that sparked the idea for this project?
So I found the scholarship through our work placement program at Waikato University, and I began looking for areas where I could find something to design to stop some sort of an injury, but I didn't know what injury. And so I talked to a number of teachers that I knew, and one of them, just school staff that I knew, and one of them suggested that maybe I could look into like a major injury cause was people running into each other when they're running around corners, and it produced a few injuries. I had a look on the internet and I found an ACC article done by Karapiro School in which they talked about a kid who lost a tooth doing it. And so yeah, I was interested, and so I sent away the application and I got the grant, and yeah.
How does this actually relate to your studies at the University of Waikato?
So all engineering students have to do 2 work placements, and I did one last year, at the end of last year, and this was this year's one.
What age ranges are we talking that this affects?
Generally primary school age range. Yeah. Yeah, so between your sort of 5 to 10-year-olds, 5 to 11 kind of thing.
What sort of injuries can result from corner collisions?
I've heard of a couple, 3 really bad ones that I've heard of from the 4 schools I talked to. 2 of them were concussions. One of them, a child lost a permanent tooth, and another one, a kid ended up with bite marks in his forehead because of the height difference, and one went around the corner and straight into the other one.
What challenges did you face in the progress?
Research was a huge challenge since I believe this sort of problem is encompassed in falls by ACC, so you can't actually find a lot of information about corner collisions as such. So it was quite hard to find statistics about injuries that had occurred from it. So the best way to do that was to actually talk to school staff, and so yeah, just a lot of that, and then also trying to engineer something which is it looks nice, it's useful. Generally they want another function in it as well, because just plonking something on the corner is a bit iffy. And so yeah, it's generally got to have another function in it. So working out those functions, putting them in, incorporating it, working out what size it needs to be. So I had to do some initial research to do that. And then yeah, there were other ones, just general organisation of meetings and schedules and things. But yeah, just challenges like that really.
So tell us about the final product, Talking Posts.
They were mentioned by about 4 of the schools that I spoke to, and generally they're just used as an art thing in a garden. I saw some in a garden, and it's just a wooden fence post, round fence post, maybe 200 mils diameter, and they paint them. Kids can paint them and with whatever they want on it. I was thinking maybe a safety message for this application, and then yeah, they just sort of stick them out. I was thinking of putting them in a like a wooden block at the bottom, secure that to the ground, and then also to a bit to the wall, and then it just comes off diagonally and has various fence posts sticking up out of it.
So what about smaller corners where a attachment can't be used?
Also developed a lot of smaller corner attachments, but in the situation where there's absolutely no room for it, just really, I also looked into non-engineering solutions. So things like, really the first thing you need to do is identify where the hotspot is, and this could be done by medical bay records, and then also asking the students, seeing where a lot of the injuries happened, and then also looking at things like where are the main thoroughfares, like kids are eating in one area and then running out to play in another area, or just fast moving traffic areas like that. So looking at the hotspots and then doing something to avoid it, like putting more teachers on duty there, or even changing the route. So if they say they have to go around one corner to get to the field, well maybe opening it up so they can, say, walk through a classroom or walk around another way, or even just blocking that area off entirely if possible.
What happens now?
So hopefully someone will read the report or see an article and like it, and then look more into it. And so if there's demand for this sort of a solution to fix this problem, then people could look into this report or even do more research to develop more products and have a look at more strategies, because I only interviewed 4 schools to get the strategies that I got, and there's quite a list of them in my report. But I mean, imagine if someone were to, say, interview all of the schools in Waikato, all the more ideas they would get for engineering and non-engineering solutions. And yeah, and then if there is a major want for things like the products, then you could go on to develop something more like that. I'm sure some company would be able to do that.
Sounds like a great way to avoid a nasty collision. Just ahead, attachment disorders. Welcome back. A Tauranga Trust has been doing groundbreaking research into children with attachment disorders and emotional attachments. I spoke with them to see what this all means and what we can do to prevent it.
Well, an insecure attachment is when the primary caregiver, who is usually the mother, you can have 3, the father and maybe a sibling, the one who is mostly available for the baby, if that is not present, then the baby cannot make an emotional bonding with that person. So when we talk about insecure attachment, we talk about attachments like at times the mother is available, at times she's not available, and that becomes an ambivalent attachment. If there is a lot of anxiety in a baby's life, then the baby can develop an anxiety disorder. And so there are different categories. But when it gets to the end of the scale, and if there is no availability of parents, when there is abuse, when there is violence in the family, and the baby is not cared for as the baby should be, what we've talked about earlier, then psychopathology can set in, and they become attachment disorders.
Do we have a high rate of them in New Zealand?
I think we have a fairly high rate. I can't tell you exactly how many, because we still have lots of good parents, but unfortunately we also have a lot of abuse, as you know, in New Zealand, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and so on. So I can't tell you the percentage.
What do you classify as verbal abuse?
When the children are constantly harassed, when there is no positive feedback to the children, they are spoken to in a down way. That to me is verbal abuse.
What can some of these attachment disorders actually lead to?
To difficult behavior, to the child going inward, so it might look the child is autistic, acting out. Real acting out, and not knowing, the child doesn't know what to do and how to behave because it hasn't been taught.
Tansy, why do you believe that first year of life is so important?
It's absolutely important. That's where the foundation is laid for that child's future social relationships. So how they interact with other people, how they develop the relationships, the nature of their relationships, the quality of their relationships with other human beings will be determined by that very first relationship that they form in that first year of life.
Can postnatal depression actually affect an attachment disorder or create an attachment disorder?
Absolutely. Postnatal depression in its severest form could lead to an attachment disorder. In a milder form of postnatal depression, it will certainly affect the attachment quality. So these children could develop an insecure attachment, particularly if there aren't other caregivers available to provide the nurturing and the caring and the affection that baby needs. If mum is struggling with her own emotional issues, then it will definitely be absorbed by that baby and cause that baby to become very anxious.
Augustine, you actually believe that most of society's problems do stem from that lack of bonding, emotional bonding between a child and mother and a child, and a mother and child. Can you explain that?
Well, again, when the parents are not being able to be available for them, and they have different caregivers, that can lead to confusions for the child's inner world. So the child needs to understand that when he has a real need and he is in danger, that he knows who to go to and help the parent. And if it's not there, the child doesn't know what to do, and again, doesn't know how to behave.
How do you believe that we can try and change our child abuse problem in New Zealand?
First of all, to begin with our programs, because I believe we are in the fourth or fifth generation of insecure attachment and attachment disorders. I think if we can help the parents with some structure, with some leadership, and to teach the parents, give your child boundaries, to teach your parents, be available for your children, especially, to keep your child safe and secure, so that the child understands when there is something wrong, I can go to my mummy or my daddy, or both.
Tansy, you guys actually have another program, the BASE program. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, this is the one that's actually provided within the educational setting, and we have started the program in a number of kindies and primary schools around the Bay of Plenty, and essentially the BASE program stands for Baby Watching Against Anxiety and Aggression, for sensitivity and empathy, and really the issues that we're tackling are inherent in the name. We're trying to build skills in empathy and sensitivity, which will in turn reduce anxiety and aggression in school-aged children. So we're getting in there early to try and provide these children with as many skills as they possibly can to eventually reduce the rates of violence and aggression that we have in our society.
What are some signs that our child may be a bit more aggressive than the norm?
Early on you'll find that they get very easily frustrated, and they'll often deal with their frustration through aggressive means, so lots of biting and hitting, head banging, those sorts of things. Those are the very early signs that there could be a problem brewing. Later on at school age their aggressive means could become much more aggressive, so lots of bullying, lots of fighting, arguing, hitting, punching, and really just not considering others' feelings and others' emotions. So these kids would become the bullies on the playground, and the ones that children are too scared to sort of be around, or they hang around them because they're too scared not to.
How do we teach a child empathy?
A very good question. It has to start very early on, from the moment that child's born really, and it's through modelling essentially. So it's about showing care and nurturance to that child, so that then they learn that that's actually how you behave in relationships, that's how you treat other human beings. So it's all about modelling to our young children how they do that.
Visit fabs.org.nz to find out more. Just ahead, turning chicken feathers into fibre. If you've just joined us, welcome to Central News. One Waikato University student has just spent his summer discovering how to turn chicken feathers into fibre. Jeffrey Wood tells us how this is possible.
I was working down in the LSL, the large-scale labs at the Waikato University, on a project to optimise the production of chicken feather fibre from waste chicken feathers. So I had to do a couple of things with that. I had to fiddle with various parameters of the process and optimise the amount of, and see which one made the most fibre. The fibre is essentially, if you get a chicken feather and you cut the sides off, so you've just got that stick in the middle left, that's the fibre bit. And I was doing various things with that, some of which I'm not too sure what I'm allowed to talk about, but it was like oil contents, strengths, took a fair few hours. I had to design and build a device to separate them by density, so a feather fibre classifier. Didn't quite get to that in the end, but you know, almost. I went through a couple of practice runs.
What actually gave you the idea to do this?
Well, as a part of an engineering degree or a Bachelor of Science at Waikato University, you have to do 2 summer placements, and this is my first summer placement. And you have to do one, and you also would like to earn some money over summer. This was put on my plate in front of me, and it was just sort of, you know, would you like to work down the labs over summer? We'll pay you. And this is a sort of an interesting project. I had a choice of a few, and I thought, I'll go with that. Feathers, fluffiness, recycling. And that's why I went. Also quite like Johan, the supervisor.
Tell us about the fibre classification test and what process you went through.
Well, you're supposed to go through a big design process, and this is where I mucked up a little bit. I didn't. I was told to build a upright tube and have air blowing through it. So that's what I did. I got a fan and a tube and I put it together. Surprisingly, it didn't work. I went through a few iterations, different designs, and in the end it's a tube upright with a blower, and you put fibres into the tube and turn the blower onto a certain airspeed, and that separates by density. It's a fluidized bed. So you get all the ones blowing out the top, which are light, and the ones that don't blow out are much less dense, or much more dense. And those, so you can separate it by fraction for certain airspirals. So that's how it's supposed to work.
So before reaching the final process, what other things did you trial?
Well, the first one I did was quite simple. It was just a massive computer fan with an upright tube, and it didn't work very well. I'm not going to go into all the design problems, but there were a few of them. It did separate by visually, so it was a good test to see if there was some difference, and there is. But yeah, anyway, I thought I had a good handle on that, and went immediately to the second one, and from really too simple to incredibly much more complicated. So that I was trying to make a continuous flow system, and that didn't work. I had Venturi pipes. I managed to get some suction on them. I'm not going to explain what that is because that's a bit hard, but it is essentially you blow. I am going to explain what that is. You blow air through really rapidly, and you have a little hole, and it'll suck air through the little extra pipe. And I was trying to feed it in one end, and it'll just continuously come out the other end in 2 different fractions. That didn't work at all. That was less successful. So it was, back to just a manual input, turn on the thing to a certain ring, let it go a little bit, and then you have your fibre fractions.
So who's been giving you guidance on this process?
Johan Verbeek, senior lecturer up in the engineering department. Good fellow, South African.
So what benefits and skills did he give you?
A healthy appreciation of deadlines.
Your role is just one part of the process, so what else is there?
The overall goal is to produce a financially feasible fibre to use in such things. You've heard of glass fibre? Well, instead of a fiberglass mat, we're going to have a chicken feather fibre mat with good properties on the cheap. So hopefully it will be much cheaper than the glass fibre and still be comparably strong with interesting properties.
So tell us about the scholarship that you gained to create this work.
The Waikato University has a program called the Summer Research Scholarships. It's $5,000 for 400 hours work or research. It's not, well, it is work, but yeah, in some field. So someone will come to the Waikato University and say, I have this problem, can you flick me a student to work on it over the summer? And that can be a researcher or even a member of a public. And sometimes they'll ask the member of the public to stump up money, sometimes it's funded through the scholarship. And that student will go off and will work through on that project for the summer.
So what happens now with the project?
Well, I'm not too sure. It depends on what Johan thinks of the outputs I've created. But probably next year, another student will come along and they'll take my results and the people before me's and carry on. There's a few little interesting things that need to be worked out, little bits and pieces. Eventually, hopefully, there'll be a plant to produce chicken feather fibre easily.
We will keep you posted on how this project evolves. That is the news for today. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook and let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back tomorrow night with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.